Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're unpacking a theory that genuinely made me rethink how I understand language.
hmm
We often just take words for granted, right? Thinking of them as, just arbitrary sounds we've sort of assigned meanings to.
You're just labels.
Exactly. But what if they're far more profound? What if they're rooted, like, deeply in nature itself?
Well, that's precisely where we're going today. We're diving into the Odom-Tilly theory.
Odom Tilly, Adam's language, right?
Exactly. Odom-Tilly literally means Adam's language.
Okay.
And it's quite a radical perspective.
Mm.
It posits that human language, maybe even our consciousness, isn't random at all.
Okay.
It suggests they're fundamentally shaped by geometrical archetypes, the kinds of forms we see everywhere in the natural world.
Wow. Okay.
So our mission in this deep dive is really to explore its core principles, look at some frankly surprising examples, and touch on its implications.
Implications for what areas?
Oh, across fields like linguistics, philosophy, even how we understand our own minds. We've been looking at some expert insights and a pretty fascinating new manuscript on all this.
Okay, let's definitely unpack this. Because, traditional linguistics people like Saussure often argue that signs are arbitrary.
Right, the classic example.
Yeah, like there's no really reason the word tree sounds like tree or looks like tree and connects to an actual tree. But Odom Tilly is saying something totally different.
Completely different. It argues that language is deeply fundamentally rooted in natural forms, in acoustics. It makes you rethink, well, everything about words.
So what's the core idea then? How does it work?
Right, so at the heart of Odom Tilly is something called the triadic foundation of language.
Triadic, okay. 3 parts.
Exactly. The theory breaks down basically all linguistic signs think letters, words, symbols into 3 irreducible categories. They're independent, but also deeply connected.
Okay, what are they?
First, there's shape. This is the geometrical form itself, reflecting something you'd see in nature.
Like a circle or a line.
Precisely. Second, sound. This is crucial. It's seen as our human imitation of some natural acoustic phenomenon linked to that shape.
An imitation of a sound in nature.
Yes. And third, meaning. This isn't just a sign, it's the symbolic abstraction that sort of naturally emerges from that specific shape and its associated sound.
Shape, sound, meaning, connected.
They form a shape, sound, meaning triad. And according to the theory, that's the bedrock. You can decompose pretty much any linguistic sign back to this triad.
Okay, that's the framework. But honestly, here's where it gets really interesting for me, the examples. They make it sort of click.
They really do bring it to life.
Let's start with one you mentioned, the letter T. How does that fit the triad?
Okay, T, look at its form. It's basically a vertical line, like an eye, crossed by a horizontal dash wick.
Right, like a simple drawing of a tree, trunk and branches.
Exactly. That's the shape of the natural geometry of a tree. Now, the sound. Think about a twig snapping. That sharp, percussive sound.
Like a T.
Precisely. A crisp T sound. The theory suggests our vocalization that ta is an approximation of that natural acoustic event.
Huh. Okay, shape is tree, sound is snap. What about meaning?
Well, what does a tree represent? Stability, right?
Hmm.
Stillness, verticality. It's rooted, singular, maybe even stagnation.
Makes sense. It doesn't move.
Right. And think about the symbolism of the Christian cross, often a T shape. It marks death, stillness again, that ultimate immobility. It echoes the tree's rootedness.
Wow, okay. When you put it like that, it feels less arbitrary.
That's the claim. And it's consistent. Take the letter S. What's the first shape you think of?
A snake. Curvy.
Exactly. The shape is traced directly to the curve of a snake in motion. Fluid curve. And the
That's easy. Hissing.
Unmistakable. Right, a
Mhm.
direct imitation. So the meaning that emerges from that S shape and the S's sound is continuity, fluidity, surface movement, maybe even order or flow.
Like a river bending or waves?
Precisely. You see those S curves in nature representing flow and continuity. It's the shape mirroring the sound and the inherent meaning.
Okay, T for tree stillness, S for snake flow. What about letter O?
O is pretty intuitive. The shape is the circle.
Yeah.
Geometry of wholeness, cycles, completion.
Right, and the sound.
The sound is that open, round vowel. Ooh, you literally make your mouth into an O shape to produce it.
Huh, yeah, you do.
So the meaning conveyed is completeness, cycles, especially cycles of rise and fall and enclosure, like the shape itself.
Rise and fall, how does that connect?
Well, here's a fascinating linguistic bit that theory proposes. Think about the word on, O-N.
Okay.
The theory suggests on derives from that cycle. An object rises, but the upward curve perhaps, and then falls onto a surface, n implying contact or negation of the rise. Gravity pulls it down.
Whoa, wait, so on isn't just a static preposition. It describes the action of landing on something.
That's the idea, rooted in the geometry that rise and fall cycle captured by O. It's dynamic.
Okay, my mind is slightly blown. This is a lot.
It is. And it gets even more structured. Odom Tilly doesn't just stop at letters. It proposes something called language algebra.
Language. Algebra. Like with math.
Sort of, yeah.
Yep,
It's a
yeah.
distinctive contribution. It suggests words and meanings don't just randomly combine. They operate according to systematic, almost algebraic rules.
How does that work? Like plus and minus?
Exactly, like plus and minus in a conceptual sense. Think of plus representing something positive, affirmation, presence, activity, and it represents the opposite, negation, absence, passivity.
Okay.
So the rules are quite logical. A positive concept hit by a negative element gives you a negative outcome. So plus followed by equals
Right.
reinforce a positive.
Mm.
Plus stays plus otter. Reinforce an absence. Plus just gives you more ache.
Okay, that makes intuitive sense.
And even if you have a sequence like positive, then negative, then positive, plus, the negative can still dominate because it introduces opposition, often resulting in an overall negative.
Huh. Can you give a concrete word example? You mentioned invisible earlier.
Right. Visible, that means can be seen, so that's conceptual positive, plus the prefix in acts as a negator.
Like not.
Exactly, not. So combined with plus visible results in invisible cannot be seen. It's not arbitrary. The theory argues it's a cancellation rule baked into the meaning structure.
Okay, that one's fairly clear. What about something slightly different, like unhappy?
Same principle. Happy is a positive state, plus undored. The prefix unnegates it, so plus combined with gives you unhappy.
Or disconnect.
Perfect example. Connect is a positive action, joining things. Plus, the prefix dis breaks that connection. It's a negative disruptor. Result, disconnection.
So it's suggesting a hidden logic, an algebra, underneath word formation and meaning, not just random conventions.
That's the core idea, that human language has this deep, systematic, logical, even algebraic structure, far from being chaotic.
So, okay, if language itself has this deep geometrical and algebraic structure, what does this imply for us? For our minds, how we actually think?
Now we're getting to the really big picture. Odom Tilly doesn't just stop at language, it extends this into a general theory of consciousness as geometrical language.
Consciousness itself.
Yes. The theory argues that human consciousness is fundamentally, perhaps inseparable from these primal geometrical archetypes we've been discussing.
Like the TSO shapes.
Exactly. Verticality and stability like T or I, curvature and continuity like S, cycles like O, even crossing and duality, maybe like X. The idea is that these primal forms didn't just shape our words, they shaped our thoughts, our very first ways of processing the world.
So thought and speech developed together based on these natural shapes.
That's the proposition. Consciousness, in this view, isn't some abstract cloud of thoughts. It's structured. It's a kind of linguistic geometry.
A geometry of thought.
Yes, where these shapes, their associated natural sounds, and the meanings that emerge from them create the fundamental models in our minds. How we understand space, time, relationships. It's built on this geometric foundation.
It sounds a bit like Plato's theory of forms, but more grounded.
That's a great parallel. It echoes Plato, but Odom Tilly attempts to ground these forms not in some abstract realm, but right here in human acoustics, our interaction with nature and the resulting symbolic systems.
Does it connect with anything in modern science, like cognitive science?
It absolutely resonates with aspects of modern cognitive linguistics. Think about Lakoff and Johnson's work on conceptual metaphors.
Where up is good, down is bad, arguments are war.
Exactly. Those theories show how spatial schemas structure abstract thought. Odom Tilly adds another layer, suggesting why these schemas might be so universal. They aren't just metaphors, they're rooted in pre-linguistic geometrical archetypes derived from our embodied experience of nature. Body plus nature gives you geometry, which gives you sound, which gives you language and structured thought.
Wow. That's incredibly powerful if it holds true. So this raises a really important question then. If this theory holds, what does it actually challenge in established thinking? And, where does it maybe align or offer something new?
The implications are potentially huge across several fields. Let's start with linguistics. It's a direct challenge, as we mentioned, to Saussurian arbitrariness.
Yeah.
That's a cornerstone of a lot of 20th century linguistics. Odom Tilly says, no, the link between the signifier, the word sound shape, and the signified, the concept meaning, isn't arbitrary for these core elements.
It's natural, non-arbitrary.
Yes, based on geometry and acoustics. That S-shape is intrinsically linked to the snake, its hiss, and the concept of fluidity. That's a fundamental shift.
Okay, big challenge to linguistics. What about semiotics, the study of signs?
Well, you know Peirce's famous triad of signs. Icon, index, symbol. Odom Tilley doesn't just elaborate on that. It gives it a deeper, almost ontological grounding.
Ontological, meaning?
Meaning it's not just about how we interpret signs based on resemblance,
Right.
icon, physical connection, index, or convention symbol. It suggests the connection, particularly for these primal signs, is built into the nature of reality itself through geometry. The meaning isn't just assigned by culture, it's inherent in the form.
So the sign is meaningful because of its shape, not just because we agree it is.
That's the implication for these fundamental building blocks.
No.
It suggests a kind of universal pre-linguistic intelligibility. A huge distinction, as you say.
Absolutely. And philosophy of language. You mentioned Adam's language.
Right. It taps into that age-old idea of a primordial, perhaps universal language. Odom Tilley suggests this. Odom Tilley wasn't just mythical. It was real. It was geometrically shaped directly from nature and potentially universal to early humans.
Okay, but hold on. If there was this universal geometrically based language, how do we end up with the thousands of incredibly diverse languages we have today? They don't all seem obviously based on T's and S's.
That's a critical question. The theory would likely argue that the primordial language provided the universal root system, the core archetypes. But over time, as cultures developed and spread,
Things changed, drifted apart.
exactly. Languages branched out. They developed more complex grammar, morphology, layers of abstraction. Cultural adaptations occurred. Think of it like a tree again. The deep roots and the main trunk might be universal, grounded in those geometrical forms. But the branches, leaves, and flowers are incredibly diverse.
So modern languages might still carry faint traces or operate on underlying principles derived from that core, even if it's heavily obscured now.
That would be the argument. The surface looks diverse, but the deep structure might still echo these original shape-sound-meaning connections. It requires a kind of linguistic archaeology to uncover them.
Okay, that helps bridge the gap. What about, say, cognitive science? We touched on Lakoff and Johnson.
It strongly aligns with theories emphasizing embodied cognition, the idea that our thinking is deeply shaped by our physical bodies and sensory experiences. Odom Tilley strengthens this by saying, yes, body and senses interacting with nature generates geometry, which then generates sound symbolism, which then structures language and thought. It adds that geometrical link.
Any implications for something like artificial intelligence?
Briefly, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It could potentially inform new approaches to AI, particularly symbolic AI, instead of just relying on statistical correlations in vast amounts of text data.
Which is how most large language models work now.
Right. This suggests grounding AI symbols in something more fundamental, these geometrical and acoustic primitives.
Right.
It might lead to AI that has a deeper, maybe more human-like understanding of concepts, because the symbols themselves would have inherent non-arbitrary links to structure and meaning. Speculative, but interesting.
Definitely interesting. Okay, wow, we've covered a lot of ground here. This has been a truly eye-opening deep dive. You've heard how the Odom-Tilley theory proposes something quite radical, that language isn't just, a cultural tool we invented and slapped meanings onto.
Not just an accident of history.
Right. Instead, it suggests language is something much deeper, a fundamental architecture of consciousness itself, inherent in our nature, tied to the very geometry of the world around us.
That's the core message. And to quote directly from the source material we reviewed, it puts it quite powerfully. Far from being a cultural accident, language is the architecture of consciousness itself, a geometry of thought inherited from the first humans, Adam and Eve.
A geometry of thought.
It's a profound idea. It invites us and invites you listening to perhaps look at language differently. Not just as sounds or symbols on a page, but as echoes of nature's primal forms, the stability of T, the flow of S, the cycle of O.
So the final thought to leave people with.
Maybe consider this.
Yeah.
How might these hidden geometries, these fundamental shapes, their inherent meanings, be subtly shaping your own thoughts, your perceptions, maybe even your feelings every single day? Where else might you see them? It's something to really contemplate.